ladies and gentlemen. We are about to get our first plenary session underway. It's now 11:30, and to that effect, I have the distinct honor and the privilege of inviting Honorable Pono Pearson, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Botswana, to come forward and chair the first session, and of course officially welcome both the mover and the seconder for the first topic. So the Right Honorable Chair, the floor is now yours, and this is where you are supposed to be seated. Thank you. So thank you so much.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is, as it has been called by the Secretariat, for clearer purposes. Those that are near me, they call me Pono Pearson Patson Moatludi. But those that bear affection on me call me Triple P. I'm a Botswana citizen. I'm a political animal since many years ago. I thought he was going to say a little bit about myself, but I'll have to do it. I started politics at a very tender age, and I've been also a local government councillor for about 15 years, I think. That was immediately after my secondary schooling when I went into local government politics. And in 1999, I graduated into parliamentary politics with the ruling party. It is called Botswana Democratic Party. And I've seen someone clad on our colors we put on red. I've seen a beautiful lady from somewhere on a red dress, and I imagined her being one of our colleagues. 1999 up to 2040, 1999 up to 09, I was a backbencher. Brand new as I was elected the chairman of Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Botswana branch. During the 2009 general elections, I went back again to Parliament. Until 09 up to 2014, I was elected the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Botswana. I got a break. I went on recess from 2014 until 2019. 2019, I came back by popular demand, came back with a bang, and I got reappointed to Deputy Speakership till now. But now today, we are here. We are at the Republic of Rwanda, and in Rwanda, we say Murikaza Neza. Simply put, welcome. You can hear I'm speaking the local language. We are confronted with a very straightforward topic, the presiding officer in a changing society, strategies for flow management of radical dissent and minority. And I have very strong, honorable speakers to come and disintegrate the topic for us. And the mover of this topic that I am going to be calling upon, he comes from the mountain of the lion. He comes from Sierra Leone. And he went to the University of Cambridge, where he got educated on law. He holds a master's as well as a PhD degree on law that he obtained from the University of Cambridge. He served in various ministries at his home country, including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He also served as an executive director of ECOWAS. From 1975 until 1982, he served as a legal advisor to the Commonwealth Secretariat. And I'm talking about none other by Dr. Abbas Bundu. He is the current Speaker of the National Assembly of Zimbabwe. Dr. Bundu, Honorable Speaker. Please give him a round of applause as he walks to the podium. He conducted a lively, a brief presentation about during his vote of thanks yesterday, and he quoted one of the writers that I love most, William Shakespeare. Then if music is about the food of love, then play on. That's Shakespeare. We are going to be talking this morning, like I've said, about the presiding officer in a changing society, strategies for floor management of radical dissent and minority government. You know, as honorable members of parliament, how rowdy it can be on the floor of parliament. You know how out of control it can be on the floor of parliament. And we are going to hear this morning how they normally bring them to tameness, how they tame these politicians, some of the radical politicians. Dr. Bundu will be the mover of the topic. He's the topic of this morning. He's got his colleague, our colleague, to share the topic with him. The honorable speaker that I'm going to be calling upon him, that is going to be discussing jointly on this topic with the Honorable Dr. Bundu. He is the chairman of the National Council of Provinces in the Republic of South Africa, the Republic of South Africa. He has been a member of parliament since 2014 till to date. He has served on various committees at the Republic of South Africa when he served as the as the chairman of the National Council of Provinces. One of the committees that he served on one of the bodies called United Cities and Local Government. He served as the president of the South African Local Government Association. He served, one of the committees that he served on, yes, he is the current political advisor to the Premier of Gauteng, Johannesburg. And he served as the mayor of Johannesburg from 2001 till 2011. And he served on the Ethics Committee and Members' Interest Committee. On his academic background, he holds a BA degree on international relations. And I am talking about none other than the Speaker of Gauteng, Honorable Amos Masondo. Let's give him a loud applause as he comes off the stage. he is going to be jointly discussing this hot potato, this hot topic with the Speaker, Honorable Speaker of Sierra Leone. I am going to be very liberal with time. I shall allow you not anything more than 15 minutes as the mover. I shall allow you not anything less than 11 minutes as the seconder. Then thereafter, I shall throw it to the audience. Honorable Dr. Bundu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. Right Honorable Donatille Mukabalisa, Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies and Chairperson of the Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers of CPA Africa Region, Right Honorable Justin Muturi, Speaker of the National Assembly of Kenya and Chairman of CPA Africa Region, colleagues, speakers of Parliament, honorable members of Parliament, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all other protocols observed. Good morning. For the purposes of my contribution to this important topic, I will confine my experience to the Sierra Leone Parliament, over which I preside as Speaker. And let me start with a brief architecture of the composition of the Sierra Leone Parliament. The current architecture of that Parliament is unique in more ways than one. Some might marvel at how it has managed to work so far in discharging its constitutional responsibilities without appearing in headline news in the international media on a regular basis. Indeed, one might even argue that the current Parliament in Sierra Leone represents the locus classicus for the development of strategies for floor management of radical dissent and minority government, which the topic of our discourse this morning enjoins us to do. I'll elaborate further on this in the course of my presentation. But first, let me highlight some of the significant signposts that make Sierra Leone's Parliament to appear somehow unique in this regard. Generically speaking, the Parliament of Sierra Leone falls under the category of a unicameral legislature. It is a standalone House of People's Representatives with no Senate or upper chamber to complement it. It also means that it is the organ of government primarily vested with legislative authority. The current membership of that Parliament is 146. Of this number, 132 are ordinary members elected by the adult population aged 18 years and above in single-member constituencies using the first-past-the-post system, and voting is by secret ballot. To qualify for election as a member of Parliament, a person must satisfy 4 basic criteria. First, he must be a citizen by birth or by registration, provided he has had continuous residence in Sierra Leone for 25 years. Second, he must have attained 20 years of age. Third, his name must be inscribed in the register of voters. And fourth, He must also be able to speak and read the English language with a degree of proficiency sufficient for him or her to participate in the proceedings of Parliament. This is the first group of members comprising the Sierra Leone Parliament. It is also the largest group. The last general elections of March 7, 2018 saw all the 132 ordinary seats contested by over a dozen registered political parties. The results of those elections are as follows. The Sierra Leone People's Party, currently the ruling party, won 49 seats. All People's Congress, APC, the main opposition, 68 seats. Coalition for Change, C4C, 8 seats. National Grand Coalition, NGC, 4 seats. And independent members, 3. This was only the third time since the promulgation of the Constitution of 1991 that more than 2 political parties have been represented in Parliament. The first and second times were in 1996 and 2002 respectively. The second group of MPs comprises paramount chiefs, and they are 14 in number, each representing one of the 14 administrative districts into which the country is currently divided. Their election is fundamentally non-partisan, and their franchise is not universal. Rather, it is restricted to fellow paramount chiefs and the registered local authorities in each district. The presidential election of March 7, 2018 was held simultaneously with the parliamentary and local council elections. In the first round of that election, an inconclusive result was produced because no candidate was able to obtain the statutory 55% of the vote, and less than 15,000 votes separated the top 2 candidates. A second ballot, therefore, had to be held on the 31st of March between the leader of the opposition, Julius Maada Bio, and Samura Kamara, the presidential candidate of the then ruling party, the APC. Julius Maada Bio was subsequently declared elected by 51.8% of the vote. Both international and national election observers hailed the election as orderly, free and fair, despite the fact that it was hotly contested. Because of the constitutional nature of the presidential system, the SLPP assumed the mantle of government, and Julius Maada Bio was sworn in as president, despite the inability of his party to win the majority of seats in Parliament. The 14 paramount chiefs elected in 2018, by tradition and by hallowed practice, were not factored in the making of the determination of which party had won the most seats in Parliament. This is so partly because it has always been the accepted constitutional convention, and partly because, as stated earlier, the election is non-partisan. As members of Parliament, the 14 elected paramount chiefs mostly sit and vote on the side of the party in power. Let me now turn to the current state of affairs in Parliament. As I have indicated, the Parliament started its life in April 2018, with the previous ruling party, the APC, finding itself in the benches of the main opposition, despite having won the greatest number of seats in Parliament, 68 seats, compared to 49 seats, for the ruling SLPP. Subsequently, however, due to judicial determination of election petitions between the two main protagonists, a situation has been brought about in which both the ruling party and the main opposition, APC, stand on an even keel in Parliament, with 58 seats each. Ladies and gentlemen, if you were looking for a classic example of a hung Parliament, you cannot find a better one than the current Sierra Leone Parliament. Perhaps the only other Commonwealth country that I know that comes close is the current Parliament in Ghana. One might therefore ask, what has been the experience in Sierra Leone in operating a hung Parliament? More specifically, what has been particularly unique in our experience in Sierra Leone so far? For a start, there is a challenging question whether it is possible to effect any amendments to the supreme law of the land, the Constitution. By Section 108 of the Constitution, the provisions are compartmentalized into two: entrenched and non-entrenched provisions. For the non-entrenched provisions, it stipulates that any bill for an act of Parliament for the alteration of any non-entrenched provision, it must be supported on the second and third readings by the votes of not less than 2/3 of the members of Parliament. Mathematically speaking, this means there must be 98 votes in favor of the motion for an amendment. As for the amendment of an entrenched provision, there is the additional requirement of a national referendum. Let me now illustrate the significance of this in practical terms. If ever there should be a government motion for an amendment to the Constitution, even if it gets all the 58 votes of the government side,
You are left with 5 minutes.
all the 14 votes of the paramount chiefs, all the 8 votes of the C4C, all the 4 votes of the NGC, and all the 3 independent votes, this would amount to only 87 votes. It will still require 11 votes from the opposition APC to pass. So the simple answer to the question is that it is virtually impossible to even contemplate the possibility of any amendment to the Constitution. Perhaps the only exception is Section 132 of the Constitution, and that speaks to the composition of the National Electoral Commission. Because of time, I'll move on very quickly. What about other crucial motions? Do they stand a chance of passage? There have been several such motions requiring pronouncements by the presiding officer after a simple collection of voices, both of the ayes and of the nays. In this regard, our cumulative experience in Sierra Leone has been at best concerning and at worst harrowing. One recent instance relates to a declaration of a state of public emergency under Section 29 of our Constitution. This was done by the government to curb the spiking incidence of sexual offenses against women through the strengthening of the Sexual Offences Act and the imposition of life imprisonment for certain grievous sexual offenses. Another was the appointment of the Electoral Commissioner for the western region of the country. In both cases, the opposition expressed dissatisfaction and staged a walkout. In other instances, the opposition called for a division under SO 46. These include the tabling of a proclamation by the government to conduct a mid midterm national census, and another for the passing of a procurement provision for military supplies under the Finance Act of 2022. SO 46 is interesting. It does make provision for resolution in such circumstances. After two successive challenges to the Speaker's decision, the standing order empowers the Speaker to call upon the members who support and who challenge his decision successively to rise in their places and to be counted. The clerk will then enter in the votes and proceedings the record of the votes so taken after the Speaker has pronounced the numbers voting for the ayes and for the nays, respectively, and shall then declare the result of the division. Despite all of these precautions in our standing orders, there has never been a dearth of accusations of partiality against the Speaker from the opposition benches, albeit done in undertones. However, as Speaker, I must admit to deriving some solace from the fact that there hasn't been a single instance when the results of a vote count taken in a division called for by the opposition under SO 46 have been different from my prior pronouncements in favor of the government. And I would like to think that this in itself is a great vindication of the quality of impartiality with which I have discharged my role as presiding officer. What's the way forward? In spite of what I've narrated, ladies and gentlemen, the question still remains, which is the way forward, particularly for hung parliaments in such circumstances? Of course, hung parliaments are not new to the democratic process, especially in Commonwealth countries. And it must be noted that they do create room for the emergence of a semblance of fragility, especially in nascent democracies, not to speak of the potential they also create for some democratic backsliding. In this regard, it is my humble submission that parliaments, particularly hung parliaments, have an extraordinary duty to rethink or to begin to think out of the box, to finding ways of how to progressively maintain decorum whilst also seeking to strengthen resilience and public confidence in the parliamentary democratic process and reduce mistrust, rancor, and tension. Oftentimes, where these persist, the impression is inescapable, rightly or wrongly, that Parliament is in crisis.
I've been very liberal. I gave you an extra minute, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I took
utilize that 1 minute very quickly. And in the search of a solution to this problem, I submit that consultation must cease to be treated as a mere theoretical construct and must cease to be emptied of practical significance. Increasingly, instead, consultation should now come to be embraced not only as an attractive companion of parliamentary leadership, but as an essential bulwark for the practice of good parliamentary democracy. I recommend it most strongly because we must remember that hung parliaments are invariably the product of popular will expressed by the people through elections. And I make this plea all the more strongly because constitutions generally have shied away from giving the courts the jurisdiction and competence to inquire into situations where consultation is a prerequisite for decision making. And they have also failed to define clearly the meaning, content, and scope.
Time has got up with you, Honorable Speaker.
Particularly where one person, in the exercise of vested power, is enjoined to consult with another. Despite these constitutional shortcomings, the fact remains that the hallowed principle of good faith is available and must be invoked in such crucial circumstances. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
As requested, I must stop there.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It is time that is restraining us. Remember, Honorable Members of Parliament, Honorable Speakers, Honorable Members of Parliament, we are dealing with the presiding officer in a changing society. We need to hear about the strategies for floor management of radicalism when dissent and minority government, when the ball shall be on the floor, when the hot potato shall be on the floor, what strategies are applied? This is where we are. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I am now going to be calling upon the seconder of the motion, my geographic neighbor, Botswana and the Republic of South Africa. You can choose on your friends, but you cannot choose on your neighbors. I'm going to be calling on our seconder, the chairman of the National Council of Provinces, Honorable Masondo. The ball is in our court. Comrade.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairperson of the session. Host Speaker,
I'll give you 12 minutes, my brother.
Host Speaker, Chairperson of the 17 Commonwealth Speakers and Presiding Officers, Africa Region, Honorable Mukabalisa Donatile. Fellow Speakers and Presiding Officers, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. Chairperson, allow me to start by thanking you for the opportunity to second, on behalf of South Africa, the topic, the presiding officer in a changing society, strategies for floor management of radical dissent and minority government, as moved by Sierra Leone. In supporting the topic, I will briefly touch on the following. The role of presiding office of the presiding officer in the Parliament of South Africa, the notion of impartiality of the presiding officer, the right of members of Parliament to be heard, the rules of debate and procedural developments in the context of South Africa, the emergence of filibustering, and the experience of managing coalition governments. On the role of presiding officer in the Parliament of South Africa, we view the role of presiding officer as central to the upkeep and the strengthening of our democracy. The responsibility of the presiding officer is therefore, among other things, to preserve parliamentary integrity, which is key to the cultivation and maintenance of public trust and confidence in Parliament. To maintain order and discipline for the conduct of the business of the House, and to ensure the smooth running of the House through establishing the rules of engagement. We are of the view that in carrying out his or her responsibilities, the presiding officer may have to deal with dissenting voices from amongst the members of Parliament. On the notion of impartiality of the Speaker or presiding officer, a presiding officer needs to maintain an impartial mind. This is, of course, as we know, much easier said than done, given that in our context, a presiding officer is also a political animal. For example, at least once in a week, the presiding officer is expected to join the rest of the MPs in attending to constituency matters under the auspices of his or a political party. Having been exposed to the rigors of party political work, the presiding officer returns to the chair to mediate political conflicts in the interests of Parliament. As the officer presiding, his or her duty is to act impartially and to protect the rights of all parties. On the right of members of parliament to be heard, our constitution guarantees freedom to receive or impart information or ideas. In the context of parliament, freedom of speech is deemed as a fundamental right, crucial to representative government in a democratic society. The presiding officer protects the right of MPs to be heard, amongst other means, by allowing members who are speaking to express their views freely, ensuring that members adhere to the rules of debate, regulating the time allocated for debate, ruling on any dispute as to the procedure to be followed by the House, and protecting the rights of the minority. The members, including the people they represent, are always at the ready to call out the presiding officer when they are affronted by the manner in which the proceedings are managed. Where there is evidence of bias, our rules provide for the removal of the presiding officer by means of a resolution. On the rules and debate and procedural developments in the context of South Africa, Chairperson, the fifth term of parliament, that is from 2014 to 2019, was particularly challenging and compelled a deeper and more thorough assessment of the rules and procedures that guide the core business of parliament and the conduct of members. Presiding officers had to take uncommon decisions, such as, for instance, suspending the business due to grave disorder in the chamber, suspending members for disregarding the authority of the presiding officer, and dealing with cases where members refuse to leave the chamber after being directed to do so by the presiding officer. At least one of these incidents led to an imposition of stiff sanctions through internal processes. However, the extent of the sanction led to the courts cautioning against the temptation to limit the powers of, quote, the parliamentarians who are dispersed to parliament to articulate the needs, views, political and economic attitudes of their constituency, the people who voted for them, close quote. On the emergence of filibustering, a politician filibusters when they take up inordinate time on a matter so as to delay progress. At different points in the fifth parliament, we have had to contend with extremely long hours of sittings, sometimes right into the early hours of the morning. This occurred when some members insisted on making prolonged points of order and almost endless motions without notice, with the sole intention to obstruct the progress in the chamber. This posed two immediate challenges. Considering delays in the consideration of the orders of the day, resulting in increased delays in the decision-making process of Parliament, and increased cost of managing the business of Parliament. However, I must hasten to say that in the recent past, the use of virtual and hybrid platforms with the supplementary rules due to the need to fight the COVID-19 pandemic has to some extent seemingly restored the authority of the presiding officer. It is somewhat strange to see the new technology as potentially the presiding officer saving grace. But Chairperson, it is too early to tell as to our institutions, as one of our institutions are in constant motion. On the experience of managing coalition governments, at national level, we have not had the challenge of having to manage minority government. However, this is an increasing phenomenon in the spheres of local government. This month's local elections have resulted in 66 hung municipalities across the country. Those in the cold face of these developments and some researchers suggest that coalition governments can both be a blessing as they allow for increased consultation and a curse due to them causing instability. Chaos in some of the metropolitan councils has in some case made it difficult for presiding officers to manage the proceedings well. Such is the commotion that one councillor was sentenced to 3 years in jail, 1 year suspended, after he hit an opposition councillor on the head with a glass water jug during an altercation. A mere reminder that the situation can become indeed very, very complex. This time around, the South African Local Government Association has led the process for the development of a framework for coalitions in local government for voluntary adoption by parties. The framework aims to resolve the challenges of instability and to encourage cooperation in coalition. So please, Chairperson, allow me at this point to conclude by thanking you for giving me an opportunity to say these few words. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Masondo. That was before the hangman's noose clamped on your head. You ran away before I could say you are out of order. Thank you, Honorable Masondo. Remember, Honorable House, I need to request you for one more applause to thank our presenters, please. Now, I am going to be throwing the ball into your court. I am going to be throwing the ball onto the floor for honorable speakers, for all honorable members of parliament to share the cake with the two presenters. Remember, as a participant from the floor, you can either amplify, you can ask a question, but over and above, I want all of you to know that we are here a CPA region, CPA Africa region. We are to formulate a very formidable relationship. We are here to learn from each other. We are here to seminarize each other. So feel free to take part on the discussion. But before I do that, let me tell you about the situation at home, at Parliament of Botswana. Parliament is sitting now. That's what we call the end of year meeting. That started about the first week of November. It will end about the second week of December. Before Parliament sits, the Speaker, the Honorable Speaker, invites the Leader of the House. We have what we call the Leader of the House. Normally is the Vice President of the country. And then we invite the Leader of the Opposition. And then we invite the two whips, the Opposition whip and the ruling party whip, to come and discuss modus operandi, to say to them, here is the timetable. Here is the timetable of this meeting. Let us discuss about the time. Each topic we will allow 3 hours. The Leader of the Opposition naturally will have a longer time of speaking. Ordinary and other leaders of the minority parties, so the Leader of the Opposition will allot him 1 hour. Leaders of the minority, 50 minutes. Every member of the floor, every member, irrespective of whether it's from ruling party or opposition, will give him 45 minutes. And then we are doing all this with a view to bring unity amongst all members. And we plead with them to stick to rules of operation. At home we have what we call standing orders. Like Honorable Masondo was saying, if you begin to tour the horizon, we will say, as the Speaker, Standing Order 57.1 does not allow you to do that. Don't introduce strenuous issues. Don't be irrelevant. The ball is on your court. Honourable members, the floor is yours. I'm going to be very liberal with yourselves as honourable members of Parliament. I cannot restrict you to a minute, maybe at the most 3 minutes. Yes, unfortunately, I must apologize, honourable members. I do not know all of you, but I think that is the Honourable Speaker from Western Cape, if I'm not wrong, but I think so. Honourable Speaker?
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. It is true, it's the Speaker from your neighborhood, and you can't choose your neighbor. I want to thank the mover, Honourable Dr. Pundu, and of course the seconder, the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces in South Africa. As the Speaker, one of the pressing matters which I thought allowed me to better manage my situation. I've got 7 parties that are represented in my parliament, which is the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. We used to have 2, just like the case that was made by the mover, in this case, Honorable Pundu. One of the things that enabled me to manage better, in order to allow some sanity in the House. Remember, honorable members, as honorable as we are, but in the chamber it can be as mad as hell. And it has happened many times. I remember once watching the House, which is led by the National Parliament, the Deputy Speaker Tsinoli, who's not here, once presented in a House where members decided to sing. One of the parties just sang throughout. You call them to order, they just sing in the House. And I think that is one of the opportunities that led to the chair removing them, as far as Honorable Masondo was saying. So in my parliament, I established something called the Speaker's Consultative Political Party Forum, which is a voluntary body that allows all the leaders of political parties, whether you are alone, one member party, to be represented in this voluntary body. And in that way, dealing with some of the nuances which may not necessarily be taken care of by the rules. And in that way, it has enabled the House to run smoothly, albeit with limited challenges. But the issue here that has been raised, which I cannot overemphasize, is the element of impartiality and the perception that could be created if you dare rule in favor of those who wear the same t-shirt as yourself on the basis that they come from your party. So it's tough. I mean, the chair of the NCOP mentioned that you come from the same caucus. Once a week you sit with the members of your party and there are strategic issues that are raised politically. Now you must come back and sit. So perhaps it's a lesson that we can learn as Africa, where presiding officers could be, and if we move that and we begin to canvass, that once after election as the speaker or as a presiding officer, you resign from your party and become a speaker of all people. And perhaps that would be one of the things that could advance the democratic processes and of course create the spirit of integrity in how parliaments are run. Then the last issue, so that I allow other speakers to speak, Honorable Chairperson, is the issue of time allocation and how you manage motions, which is using the programming authority of Parliament. I think those are 2 areas that as speakers we need to focus on. Because ordinarily you will find that the opposition parties become unruly and the filibustering take place and therefore collapse the House on the basis that they don't get enough time. And that's perhaps one of the areas as an experience that we could share. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. One point that I picked from your contribution is the idea of caucus. When you call members to a caucus, we are saying, look, Honorable Peter, every time you are out of order, please behave like an honorable member. Look, Honorable Jackson, every time you do not speak well of other members of parliament, please remember you are an honorable member. You consult. Democracy is about consultation. Members of parliament needs to consult, and they need to be consulted. The ball continues to be in your court. Once more, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for Western Cape. Honorable Speaker from, hang on a second, I know all of my colleagues. Honorable Speaker from Namibia. I think so. Am I wrong? Honorable Speaker from Nigeria.
From Uganda.
Oh, from Uganda. Yes. Sorry. Please, Honorable Speaker. The floor is yours.
Honorable Chair. I represent Uganda. Honorable Chair, I want to thank you for the opportunity. One, Uganda is in the current parliament with 556 members of parliament, diverse in character. In the recent past, we've had challenges, but most of the challenges on the floor of parliament, they emanate on political debates. But one way we've managed, or what I believe that has helped us since those incidents, is for the presiding officer or the Speaker of our Parliament being proactive, not to wait for the potato to get on the floor of Parliament. How have we managed? There's a standard requirement to have a notice for any motion to be considered on the order paper or on the floor of Parliament. That notice period of 3 days allows the Speaker to discuss the content of the motion with the member who wants to bring it on the floor, and they get to understand each other, look at the controversies involved, and then it helps the presiding officer to find a solution to that. The second way we've done, which is actually what you mentioned, that is the Precession Briefing with all the leaders involved, the lead of opposition, the lead of government, business. That has also helped us a lot. But one more Precession briefing that matters a lot, the presiding officer usually consults the clerks at table to get to know the concerns of the members before plenary. Number 3, one other major aspect that we believe that has helped in this changing society is the activation of the House Business Committee. Because the composition of the Business Committee are the leaders of the different committees of Parliament. These leaders of committees, they understand their members, they understand the issues that they are raised during the committee sessions. So in meeting them, in activating that committee, it helps the Speaker to understand the divergent views within the members. That has actually helped us a lot. Number 4, there's a rule, unwritten rule within our Parliament, that all debate on the floor must be evidence-based. You must have evidence before you raise any motion or any matter on the floor of Parliament, because if it's not evidence-based, in most cases, it's what causes friction between members. But if you have evidence, then the corresponding member has no basis of dissenting or creating chaos. Number 5, the most important one, is sensitizing members. The moment we get into Parliament, we are sensitized on the rules of the debate, We are sensitized on the constitutionalism, democracy, and human rights, so that has helped members to understand the concept of debates, which has actually helped us a lot as Parliament of Uganda. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving us this chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We sensitize honorable members of Parliament on the rules of debate. We tell them what we expect of them as a speakership. We tell them what we expect of them as the countryside, as the population, as the masses. You remember, Honorable Speaker also dwelt on this issue of consultation. Honorable Speaker for Tanzania.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and I would like to congratulate both speakers who presented the paper today. I would just like to have experience in Tanzania, what has happened in Sierra Leone. We were one-party government before 1992, and when 1992 came, we resorted to a multi-party country, inviting different parties to participate in the elections and running the government and having different ideas from different parties. Now, there was an incident during the 1992-1995 elections. The opposition, when they won their seats, in part of our swearing-in procedures, there was a comment that when you swear in, you should say that you should have allegiance to the government. And the opposition said, no, we are here to oppose the government. We're not here in favor of the government. So the swearing ceremony had to be canceled, and we had to go back, the government had to go back and draw again the prayers, and then we resorted to saying that now the allegiance should be to the nation, not to the government. I would like to have experience of Sierra Leone, if such a matter had arisen when they introduced the multipartism in Sierra Leone. And in Tanzania, we have two standing committees, the Public Accounting Committee, which is chaired by the opposition, by nature of being a Commonwealth Westminster guidance, and we have the Local Government Accounting Committee, which is also chaired by the opposition. But now in Tanzania, the majority of the members of parliament in Tanzania, 97% are coming from the ruling party. So the 3% cannot be part of the opposition in the parliament, according to our standing regulations. But they are allowed to chair the two committees as a procedure of Commonwealth guidelines. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our Honorable Speaker from the Republic of Tanzania, our oath of allegiance. They say we are not going to indicate our allegiance to the government because we are opposing the government. Multipartyism. The allegiance is to the country. Whether opposition or ruling party, at the end of the day, the bigger picture should be the country. I saw a hand from Honorable Speaker. I'll come to my brother. Let's give the chance to the Honorable Speaker from Namibia, and then you'll be next. Honorable Speaker?
Yes, thank you so much. The moderator and the speaker at the same time of your respective country. In contributing to the discussion on the floor, which is managing radicalism, I would like to propose that we look at it by perhaps researching further as to what could be the cause of radicalism during and after a parliamentary session. Is it about the political environment in the country at that time? Is it about the behavior of a particular party in general that have sent the particular MP into an August setting? Is it about copy and paste? With copy and paste, I'm looking at countries or MPs that would use the media as one of the source of information, see what is happening in a particular country. For example, they would look at, with due respect, Uganda. I'm not saying it had happened there. Maybe in their chamber, one day they stood up and then they threw some stones and chairs among themselves, and they got it right to pass that bill. And that was like a strategy that they have used. Now the people that are facilitating the copy and paste would now replicate it in their own chamber and say, maybe if the speaker does not give us a chance, the best that we can do is to take stones and chairs and throw to the direction of the speaker. In that way, we'll get it right and this bill will be passed. Is that perhaps what is happening in our chambers? Or is it about the lack of understanding on the standing rules and order? Yes, on a timely basis, we see new MPs arriving in our chambers with very little knowledge of standing rules and order, and they would like to turn the chamber into somebody should complete the sentence. Now, on the issue of the presiding officers, speakers, and chairpersons during the chamber, and it was rightly mentioned by the movers and the seconders. Is it about the consistency in moderating the chamber sessions when you perhaps give quite sizable time to a member who belongs to your party, and when the other person rises, you limit him and even count downwards instead of counting upwards? Is it about impartiality because you also belong to a particular party and you will feel that a particular agenda should be advanced? Or is it about how fairness is infused during the chamber session, where other people would feel left out during the process? There are chambers, there are systems in countries here in Africa where we perhaps should learn and perhaps take it back home for us to avoid a domination from a particular political party in terms of moderating discussions. A model where those that we refer to as minority party representatives should also be given a chance to preside, be it that they are deputies, deputy presiding officer, or vice chairperson also. Through that, everybody will feel represented in the chairmanship. Somebody was just mentioning of committees where they are to be also given a chance to preside over one or two committees. That will also be a strategy of bringing everybody
move towards winding up, Honorable Speaker.
As I am moving towards the winding up as directed, I would like us now to look at all our constitutions in various countries, whether they are friendly to all nations that it governs, or whether they are for a particular agenda and not to nurture the nation. I so submit.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. One of the important points I harvested from your contribution, Honorable Speaker, is about capacity building. Honorable members tend to be radical because they are ill-informed. They do not know what Parliament expects from them. They don't understand the standing orders. They don't know what we are talking about when you talk of the important point that the Honorable Speaker from Tanzania spoke about, the membership to the Public Accounts Committee. Are we compliant to our own rules and regulations? I've seen a hand somewhere there. Yes, Honorable Member, please tell us who you are, my brother. Because we are now hamstrung with time, at least spend a minute or so. Please give him a better microphone. If you were like me, with a voluminous voice without microphones, I would ask you to hold the floor without the microphone. Wait for it, I can't even hear you. Our clerks, do you want MPs to throw stones at you? Because of lack of provision of the right tools? And the other important point is our staff. Give the right tools to the honorable members of Parliament. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Honorable Stephen Kangwajiri Wakanuma, Member of Parliament from Uganda. And I want also to take this opportunity to thank you for the time you have accorded to me. And at the same time, I want to thank the presenters for the good views they have shared with us. Mr. Chairman, I won't take long on the microphone. I want to be brief and precise on the issues and the matters being presented by Honorable Enos Asimwe, who is representing us. Mr. Chairman, in Uganda, once you become a member of Parliament, automatically you have to take oath. And on that day, you are given some important tools. One is the Constitution, the other one is the rules of procedure. Immediately after that, it is the mandate and the prerogative of Parliament to organize on how members of Parliament should conduct themselves. We have a full month for a member of Parliament to be well prepared, be well inducted on how a member of Parliament should move, should talk, should walk, should wear, should do, or should transact businesses while at Parliament. Mr. Chairman, it is very important for someone to be prepared. Remember, we come from different spheres of life. Some are businessmen, others are politicians right from the grassroots, others are what? But once you become a member of Parliament, the other book which you are given, which is the rules of procedure, you must observe. You must observe before you speak, the way you walk, the way you do, businesses at Parliament. In that case, the other constitution which you are given, it is your role as a citizen of that nation to defend and protect all the time. You as a member of Parliament, you are not a member of Parliament from the other constituents which you represent, but you are a member of Parliament of the whole nation. For instance, where I come from, those people who voted me, I'm representing Uganda now here. Now, when it comes to the issue of the matter now we are trying to discuss, what has helped us in Uganda? The presiding officer or the speaker must have what we call open door policy. The open door policy I'm talking about, the speaker must open the ears and give all the opportunities and give all the chances to all members of Parliament from different parties. You must listen to them. You must know what is transpiring down there. You must know what is boiling. You must know what will kill or what will, help people to move. Then before you come on the floor of Parliament to transact your businesses, you will be able to know how members of Parliament are moving. In that case, I would love and I want to implore that the members, if that way can be followed, I think would be in position to avert and suppress the challenges that are affecting Parliament. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Thank you very much. Open door policy. The Constitution and the standing orders given to you, a new member, form part of the ammunition that equip you. Honorable, I've seen you, my brother. I'll come to you. Allow me to accord the slot to the Honorable Speaker from Cameroon. Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just want to throw light on the situation in my country. In Cameroon, we have more than 25 political parties, but in the National Assembly, we have 4 plus the ruling party, 4 opposition party, and the ruling party. And in our system, the assembly is run by a bureau, is managed by a bureau headed by the speaker and 23 members. That is the deciding organ of the assembly. When bills and laws are given, we examine it first and then send it to the general plenary for discussions and adoptions. We in Cameroon, the parliamentarians are given the opportunity during plenary to express themselves at least for 10-15 minutes, be it of the opposition or of the ruling party. You have the same rights as that of the ruling party. There is no favoritism. A member of Parliament is elected to represent his people, and in our system, once elected as a member of Parliament, you are for the nation and not for your political party. So what I want to say here is that we are not like other democracies. From what I've experienced from other leaders, the Speaker of the House is the leader, but he does not influence the activities of the other opposition party. Everybody has a right to his opinion and to share ideas, if only the ideas are for the interest of our electorate, which are the common man because we are elected to serve our people. That's how it functions in our own country. And the relationship between the executive and the legislative is completely different. There is no influence. There is absolutely no influence. Parliamentarians are free to handle ministers and others as the law permits, but the assembly is generally governed by the standing order of the House. There are no excesses. Any member of parliament in a plenary who comes with an excess is stopped by the clerk, by the speaker, or any other member can stop you if you are going against the standing order of the House. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. You are calling for impartiality as well as fairness, and the executive, for lack of a diplomatic way, the executive should not bulldoze parliament around. That's what you are saying. Honorable member on a black shirt. I did hear you. Keep on saying hello.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
And the head of delegation of the ACP EU Parliament. I'm sorry I didn't do myself. I started by continuing my point. When you understand the Constitution, it's very clear that you know what the way you change, and you can represent it very well. The only way a speaker can control his members is when you enforce the law. That's the standing order of the Constitution. You shall read things. There's no way you are going to control it by the use of extra powers. Our speaker is running. I already said we have necessity of our parliament. I describe our parliament as a conglomerate of representation. It's not a champagne presiding over presiding. It's not a champagne. It's a very difficult solution. We sometimes lose against the members of parliament and the government bench. But I will challenge you sitting there. I will go further to challenge you using the rule of law. It's standing under the Constitution. We come to compromise both sides. So we ensure even in the Constitution, it's enshrined in Section 97 of the Constitution, Act number 6 of 1991, that your behavior in and out of Parliament must be honorable. Must be honorable. You cannot be in the chamber, you want to speak to the Mr. Speaker, you don't want to stand for others, and you want to stand and speak and sing. That's out of order. The Speaker can only enforce you to sit down by using the rule of law. Anything beyond that, you are acting as a speaker against the rule of law. You can only control members when you know the sign you have and know the Constitution. That's what our speakers do. We are living in a very complex system which we call the Parliament. So, you can consult. Consultation doesn't mean you have to go against the law proceedings for the Constitution. You can do consultation within the ambit of the law. So that is what I want to emphasize. The only way you can bring conformity to the House, or conformity to the House, or members to be aware when the speakers ensure that the rule of proceedings or the Constitution are observed under his or her watch. If the speaker don't refuse to rule by the rules, maybe they say the speaker is biased. But human being itself, they can class it differently. If you want to preside with the fair, in the free and transparent manner, you have to live within the ambit of the law. Mr. Speaker, Australia, how do you do that? You have challenged him, we in the government side, we voted for him. I moved a motion for him to be elected, but most times he tends to go against us. I will always challenge you to the rule of procedure. Let me give you this example. I have
and then you gravitate towards ending.
Yes, thank you. Let me give you this example. I'm a member of the ACP EU Parliament. We went for a committee, Social Affairs Committee and the Environment. The European counterpart and the ACP side. When we went to the committee meeting, they said, we are not going to get a meeting. Let me come, Mr. Chairman. It's very interesting procedure, let me tell you. I know the rules of procedure very well. They said they are not there. Our European counterpart, they are not there. They said it was not possible in the meeting. I stood up, I challenged the chairman. I said, Mr. Chairman, what was as of the procedure? Read it. He said, no, I have read it. I said, we have God. I challenged it. Come to us. There was a we went ahead and it. For what happened? Our European counterpart came to do. We apologized. And because of apologized to the parliament, I moved the motion out to hold the meeting for the future. For the case of deliberation for the group of the parliament, the ACC and EU. And let me now you represent them, not like they represent it all. They are people. The only way you represent them, the only way you can represent the rule of law and the rule of procedure, standing for that as a process. So I want to beg for it.
You have made your point on that issue, and remember, you have made your point. Thank you very much. You emphasized on the rule of law, the ambits of the law. Rules are rules, no compromise. And then you'll be a very fair, strong, and impartial speaker, impartial presiding officer. Now that we are where we are, we've got 6 minutes left. I am going to divide the 6 remaining. Now, as a speaker, that's when you are trying to indicate to me that show us how impartial you can be. The Honorable Member of Parliament, I think you are from Nigeria, I can tell, from the northern province. And then you will be followed by the other gentleman next to. A minute each. Oh, hang on a second, I will be completely out of order. I was chairman of the CPA Africa region, who doubles being the Honorable Speaker of Kenya. Honorable Mturi, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Be brief, please, Honorable Speaker.
I'll try to be brief, even though I want to first to thank the mover and the seconder. First, give the Kenyan situation that the Speaker of a House of Parliament, we are bicameral, is not a member of that House, but is one that is qualified to be one such. Therefore, the Speaker does not represent any constituency. The Speaker in Kenya does not attend political party meetings or caucuses. For purpose of consultation, the first committee that is formed after the first general election, after every session, is the House Business Committee, which is chaired by the Speaker, comprising of both a leader of majority, a leader of minority, majority whip and minority whip, and other members, but there must be an independent. The Speaker allocates speaking time, which is managed electronically in Kenya. So, leader of majority has equal speaking time as leader of minority. Chair of a committee follows. The Speaker also appoints 4 members to the Speaker's panel, 2 of whom must be from the ruling party, the majority party, and 2 from the minority party, or composition thereof, or coalition thereof. Both the chairs of committee, there are some committees which are chaired exclusively by the minority, that is public accounts and public investments. We have an extra committee, which is special funds committee, just like the local government, which is chaired, in our case, by an independent, a member who does not belong to any party. We also encourage in our rules that if members or a member is of the view that the report of a committee does not sufficiently cover their views, they are at liberty to append to a report of a committee a minority report. It's allowed, and members will vote on it when the matter is presented. The other thing is about some information to members. Members have, of course, to queue electronically to get speaking time and get to cut the speaker's eye. It is electronically, so they have to punch in their numbers. Currently in Kenya, we have 22 political parties, some of which are single members. We have 14 independents. If members misbehave, they know, having been the ones that made the standing orders, that the Speaker's rules as well as the powers and privileges law will apply to any misbehavior in the House and occasionally out of the chamber. We every time encourage that at every session that there is orientation of new members. And that's why we invite from across the Commonwealth speakers at what we call post-election seminars, where we come again, share experiences, and this we have done quite religiously. We hear what is happening in other jurisdictions, and more particularly in our case, we like mostly to hear from our brothers from within the continent, so that we share our experiences, the challenges, and more so at this time when we see cases of radicalism increasing. But more often than not, we don't know that those matters are usually as a result of prevailing political situations in any country. I thank you. I would have spoken more about this, but in the interest of time, I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. You will realize I had to be liberal with you because you are our CPA chairman, Africa region. I had to be liberal with you. Otherwise, I would be out of order. Honorable Member?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have seen the two of you. I've seen your hand. Okay. Let the Honorable Member speak first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Other honorable speakers.
Please be brief, Honorable Member. We have two.
I'll try as much as possible. I am Right Honorable Charles Yu from Katsina State, Northern Nigeria. As you know, in Nigeria we have three different houses. We have the upper house, that is Senate. We have the lower house, we call it House of Representatives. Then we have State House of Assemblies. I happen to be from the State House of Assembly. The upper house has over 120 something members, and the lower house has 300 members. Then the third one is House of Assembly, which I am one of the Speaker of this House of Assembly. And we have 36 states, and every state has its own state assembly, with members minimum of 24 and maximum of 40. My one is 36. What really, and one thing that is, we are all from one party. The 36 of us from this Katsina said all from one party, and we speak the same language. So in our assembly, you can speak your local language. What keeps us, or what gives us the courage as a speaker, is one thing, that every Monday we sit down with all the members in my office, what we call executive session. We will all sit down and bring the order of the day, right from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We set 3 days in a week. So we will bring the order paper. This is what we are going to discuss on Monday. This is the motion. Those are the bills. This is what we are going to discuss on Tuesday and Wednesday. And those are our bills. If anybody has anything, let it bring it out so that we can have synergy and work it out. This is what always give us and help us in delivering our service. Thank you very much.
You want to remember? The bottom part of your submission is about consultation. You are emphasizing on the need for consultation. The gentleman behind the honorable member who has just left the floor, yes, it's you, and then, yes, I've noticed. No, the gentleman behind the honorable member from the northern part of Nigeria, yes. And then it will be you, my brother, next to a lady with a beautiful pink dress.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. My name is Richards David Kalwanga, Member of Parliament from Busuju, and I represent here Uganda. I have a few issues that I would like to put across, but mainly to you, our speakers. You failed on one thing, showing the interest or the interests of your parties. And that's where radicalism begins from. So it's our humble request as members from the opposition side at times to always balance the House and you'll be solving all the solutions, all the problems. We have histories that reflects that might come, or you can see what might come out the moment you see opposition reacting. So it's our humble request as members, more so from the opposition, because all the members that are here, all the speakers that are here, seems to be from the ruling party. And it's very hard to win speakership if you are from opposition. And it becomes at times a serious issue and it causes havoc within the chamber. So because we don't have time, we would have expressed a lot. For me, I'm from NUP, National Unity Platform, but I'm representing Uganda and I wish it for the better. Thank you very much.
Remember, pass the microphone.
My colleague was asking, are you wishing for NUP as a party or Uganda as a country? I wish for my country, Uganda.
The gentleman next to the lady with a beautiful dress. Yes, you were speaking about impartiality, remember? I've got you very well. Yes, sir. You're the last one, and then I give the floor to the presenters.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me the floor. I am Cyprian Niomugabo. I am a senator from the Parliament of Rwanda. I'm here as an observer. I want to share the experience of Rwanda when we talked about this power sharing and the minority government, which in fact in Rwanda does not apply, because according to our constitution, there is what we call power sharing. When you look at Article 62, it is that there is a power sharing which is respected in state institution in accordance with the fundamental principles set under Article 10 of the Constitution of Rwanda and the provisions of the law. The President of the Republic of Rwanda and the Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies cannot come from the same political organization. It is provided in this Article 62. Cabinet members are selected from political organizations on the basis of seats held by those political organizations in the Chamber of Deputies. However, a political organization holding the majority of seats in the Chamber of Deputies cannot have more than 50% of cabinet members. It is not prohibited for other competent people to be appointed to cabinet. Again, in the parliament, the principle of representation of various categories is respected as provided for by the Constitution and the other laws. Let me again say that even when we sit, there is a sitting arrangement which is in fact organized as alphabetical order, and when it is time for intervention during the session, every member of parliament during the plenary session has a same time. We have 3 minutes for each member, and this is provided by each chamber, each organic law of the chamber. So for us, this issue of minority government does not apply because of this power sharing. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, honorable member. You are our host. Thank you, honorable host. We are at the glamorous city of Kigali, in a powerful, wonderful country of Rwanda. Now, I haven't seen any hands. I am going to divide the remaining time between our two presenters. You were not indicating to speak, you were just stretching your hand. You want to contribute? I'll give you a minute. Yes, the gentleman standing, I'll give you a minute. He doesn't understand. Or is looking for the microphone. The roving mic, please. Protocol. Oh, okay. Oh, thank you very much. He was trying to help the speaker to identify the next speaking member of parliament. Right, we have 6 minutes, my wonderful presenters. Who is going to start? And I'll give you 3. I'll give him 3. You want to start, Honorable Speaker?
Thank you, Chair. I really want to thank all those who've contributed to this very important topic and debate. I'm troubled by one issue still, I must admit. Consultation seems to be a favorite term that we find in the guiding instruments of Parliament, the Constitution and the rules of procedure. And consultation is invariably made a prerequisite for decision making. The question really emerges. Neither document, Constitution or standing orders, defines the content, the scope, and the meaning of consultation. And sometimes the leaders of political parties who are the drivers of what takes place in the House are outside of the House. The question is, should we define what consultation means? I think this is some food for thought. Should we define consultation either in the Constitution or in the rules of procedure? Because like it or not, that term has become something like the bedrock of parliamentary democracy. I thank you, Mr. Chair. I leave that as food for thought for all of us. Should we define consultation, particularly where the leaders who drive what happens in the House are not members of the House? I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. From Sierra Leone, the Mountain of the Lion. Honorable Speaker Masondo.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. I've been broadly covered. Just to say that I'll be very happy, perhaps at the next meeting, to see some of the ideas being captured in the documents, a formal document of in the minutes and whatever other document that may be there, especially on ideas such as the Parliament as a learning organization, so that in an ongoing way, parliaments in Africa are seen to be progressively embracing ideas with the view of empowering the institutions so that the institutions in turn are able to deliver a better quality of life to the various countries on the continent as well as its people. The other idea that I think deserves a bit of elucidation and emphasis is the whole question of an open door policy that enables ongoing engagements to happen and therefore create an atmosphere where people feel that they are free to engage and to take institutions and the work to a higher and different level. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker Masondo. Honorable members, may I please pray for a wonderful round of applause for our presenters. You have also been a wonderful audience. Please, a round of applause for your good selves. And remember, this wonderful round of applause from wonderful audience is being advocated for at a wonderful Kigali Conference Center, at a wonderful Republic of Rwanda. Honorable members, thank you very much. Without an abuse of the chair, it's 1:15. I hope I won't be wrong to call, to invite us back at 2:30. I'm right. I'm always right. The speaker is never wrong. Honorable members, thank you very much. Bon appetit. Hang on a second. Housekeeping announcement.
Delegates will go for lunch. There will be ushers to guide them where lunch is being served. And so, at the time which you have said, they should be here maybe at
2:30.
Much earlier, a quarter to 2. Maybe you correct that.
Okay.
Yes. 1:45.
Honourable members, the lunch is ready, lunch is served. Our protocol officers will direct us where to have lunch, how to have lunch, when to have lunch, and where to have lunch. And we should be here back at 2:15. Bon appetit, honourable members, honourable speakers, honourable members of parliament. Thank you for your attention. And as that concludes the business on today's order paper, the House is adjourned.